Let me honor your death wish.
What is going on, everybody? It's Roku back with more League of Legends content, and today we're going to be doing an updated Season 11 rune guide featuring pretty much every single thing you need to know about the runes, right? As some of you who've been following the channel know, I already have a few rune guides out already, but the problem with those is that they're made for Season 10, and they're largely outdated at this point. So I'd like to make some new videos and update them for Season 11, and also I've gotten better at the game during this one season, so I want to basically just teach you guys some of the newer things that I've learned as well, right? So, you know, I've gotten better at making content, I've gotten better at the game, so I want to make better videos, right? So, let's just get right into it, and let's just start off with the rune page that you want to be running 99% of the time, right? So the one keystone they want to run every single time is Conqueror, right? Now, Conqueror is like it's like the best keystone there is for Darius. Like no comparison at all, right? Nothing else is good. If you want like a fully detailed breakdown on every single rune in the game, you can check out my Darius guide, and I have every single rune broken down. But for those of you who want to know all you need to know to carry, then Conqueror is the best setup, right? Because like Conqueror right now is more like what Fervor used to be before, right? Like as Darius, we don't really like Lifesteal or Omnivamp, we just like the AD from Conqueror. Now that they removed some of the healing and added more AD, and this is great for us, right? So Conqueror is the go-to for us Darius players, like for every single match, right? It is somewhat awkward that it's like 12 stacks, which is basically translating to 6 attacks, because, you know, melee champions stack it twice instead of once per attack, so, you know, it's a bit awkward that it's 12 stacks, but on the bright side, we have Stridebreaker now in our main build, so if you use Stridebreaker properly, you should be able to get, like, you know, a fully stacked Conqueror just in time for your, you know, Noxymite passive, right? So, let's get into our second row here, or our first row rather. This is our Triumph, right? And like the other runes don't really matter that much. Triumph is just the best rune in the whole game for Darius, right? It's the best non-keystone rune in the game for Darius. This helps us so much. It helps you with dives, it helps you with team fights, it helps you in pretty much any situation. And with a kill-based champion like Darius, we need to run Triumph into every single game. Simply not running Triumph is putting us in a disadvantageous position, so run this rune into every single match. Next, we have a choice here between Alacrity and Tenacity, right? Because we've lost some of the attack speed from Triforce, because we don't go Triforce, right? We go Stridebreaker. It's better to go Alacrity this season, because it's always a good idea to have like one attack speed, right? Like an attack speed of 1 attack per second, right? On Darius. Anything more is inefficient, but like because we lost the Triforce attack speed, the Alacrity attack speed really comes in handy, right? But with this sort of meta where like, you know, there's just some enemy teams that have a ton of CC and annoying things, you might sometimes be forced into picking Tenacity, right? So if you're up against teams that have a lot of annoying CC, then go Tenacity. But like if you want to be more aggressive, or if you want to actually be like more dangerous in lane, go Alacrity, because the Legend Tenacity doesn't really do too much for the laning phase. Then the next little rune we're going to take is Last Stand. Coup de grace does not work at all because Darius's ultimate, like, it's an execute. Why would we need more damage on physical damage when we already have a 2 damage execute? And before some of you guys ask, no, you cannot increase the damage of true damage, right? That 8% does not apply to true damage, right? So yeah, Last Stand is way better because, like, you know, it's focused on you being low HP. And when you're in these busy team fights, you know, how often do you run into situations where you're like 10 HP and you hit one miracle Q and you kill everyone, right? Last Stand is going to help you with those kinds of plays, right? So this is basically the setup you want in your first tree, right? With you switching between these before every game, right? And tip I can give you right now is to have one rune page that you change before every single game. Like you're in champ select, and before you guys get into the game and you see the picks of all the enemy champions, then go set up your rune page from the beginning and then like, you know, go into game. Don't have that thing where you have like 10 ready-made rune pages. That's just inefficient and that's dumb. Make a new rune page for every single match. Okay, so for the secondary tree, we can go either resolve or we can go sorcery, right? So with like the changes and etc, buffs, nerfs, whatever, it became kind of more balanced in terms of which one of these two trees you go for. But basically speaking, you go sorcery if you want to be better in team fights, right? Sorcery is way better for team fights, whereas resolve is way better for 1v1s. Or like resolve basically guarantees that you get through laning phase, and resolve makes you tankier, right? And it helps you take down turrets faster too if you take demolish. But sorcery, it doesn't give you stats, but it gives you a lot of like outplay potential, meaning that if you get into these kinds of sick 1v5 moments, sorcery is going to help you out. And like if you're trying to 1v9, sorcery is better, but if you're trying to like work with your team, resolve is better, right? So let's just go into the sorcery tree. The sorcery tree is not very like open in terms of like choice. You mostly go Nimbus and you go either Transcendence or Celerity. All of these other things are completely worthless, right? Nimbus, we all know Nimbus is great with our summer spells. These are worthless. So just pick the one that you find better, right? If you like Celerity, which is like a bit of extra moves, you go Celerity, but I personally like Transcendence because they buffed it where it gives like us the 10 ability haste in level 8 instead of giving us 10 CDR at level 11 like last season. And they've also made this change where, you know, each takedown reduces the cooldown of all your abilities by like 20%. Now we know that Darius's Q and W are already on low cooldown, but with Transcendence, you basically get to use your E like twice in a fight if you start killing people, which is really, really strong because our E is pretty much one of our most powerful abilities. Like, it's powerful as in, it's like the game changer ability, right? It's the one that we make plays with. So, yeah. For the Resolve tree, you can pretty much use most things in this tree, but I'm just going to explain the ones that are the most powerful, right? You mostly always want to take a rune from this row, right? So bone plating is amazing into all of these like big bruisers that we gotta fight, like Renekton, Jax, Riven. It's great into these bruisers that go in, trade with you, and get out, right? Or like these bruisers that want to actually fight you. Bone plating makes the difference, right? It's a bit useless in the first few levels, but like once you get your level 3, right? Once you get all your CC abilities, you're going to be able to make maximum use of bone plating, because if you have your slows and your pull, you can basically force champions into all-ins so they can't just, Renekton can't just Q you and like walk away. He would have to stun you and fight you, and at which point you can do W or E and just keep him in the fight. So bone plating is a very, very strong rune. Second Wind helps you in every single range matchup, right? In every single range matchup, in every single poke matchup, in every single one of these annoying matchups that they love poking you, and they don't like actually fighting unless you're poked down, you take Second Wind, right? This helps into like all those like Cassiopeia, Lucian, Vayne, Quinn. It also helps into champions like Akali, who's very hard to catch unless they make some sort of critical error, right? Second Wind is amazing. But if you're good, you can also take a bone plating into Akali, but Second Wind is amazing, right? Conditioning is very, very good if you're up against teams that have a lot of damage, but you have a lane that's not very hard to beat. If you're up against Sion, for example, conditioning is free, because you don't really need anything in lane to beat Sion, right? But like in exchange for sacrificing like one of these two very powerful lane runes, you get conditioning, which is 9 armor and MR just for free, and like a 5% increase of all your resistances, which is actually amazing, right? Imagine that paired up with Gargoyle Stoneplate or something like that in a game. You're actually just unkillable, right? So conditioning is very, very powerful. So those are the circumstances you want to take these runes in. If you are able to guarantee that you win your lane, right? If you're up against like a bruiser lane or a free lane where you know you're gonna win, Demolish is amazing, right? Because Demolish lets you like, you ever run into situations where you shove the lane into the turret after killing them, but you don't have time to stand there and take the plates. Demolish basically makes it that every time you kill your opponent or force them out of lane, you get 1 free plate, right? Because like you just shove the lane in, 3 seconds, get that Demolish off, and then go back to base, right? Demolish helps you take so many more plates than you could before. So like if it's basically like if you're already winning lane, it helps you snowball out of control, right? And it helps you take down turrets way, way, way faster, right? So if you're confident, right? If you're into like some sort of like bruiser, Jax, or Renekton, and you're confident, you can go this setup so that, you beat their ass, you make them go back to base, and then you just keep taking down these turrets, right? So this is a great setup into those kinds of matchups, right? If it's a harder lane or a harder game, you might want to go for some of these runes, right? Overgrowth is like a pretty good rune, but it's just not nearly as good as these two, right? So let's just look at them. Unflinching, let's say it's like a Kennen lane or a Cassio lane, right? Unflinching gives us a small amount of tenacity early on, but it basically increases the lower health we are, right? So this is a great rune for team fights, and it's like let's say you're getting focused down, it's like, it's very good for team fights, and it's pretty good in like some of these sorts of like ranged lanes, because tenacity against Kennen or tenacity against Cassiopeia is very vital, right? You love this into some of these high CC teams, right? So if the enemy has Leona, you go Legend Triumph, and then you go Unflinching, right? So that's just perfect for these high CC teams. Revitalize it's kind of bugged here, but it's, it's 5% when it's 5% more heal and shield power, and 10% extra when you're below 40% health. Now, this rune just got so much stronger because in Season 11, our gameplay is based around shields, right? Because we're going to be buying Gargoyle Stoneplate into these harder teams a lot. Say you have a hard lane, right? You have a decently hard lane, but the enemy team is very difficult for you to deal with, right? They have a lot of CC, they have a lot of damage, just very annoying to deal with. Going Revitalize is very good because you can go Strikebreaker, Sterax, and Gargoyle third, right? And with this build, the Revitalize is going to boost the shields of both Sterax and Gargoyle, right? And because the threshold is 40% and Sterax is at 30% threshold when it activates, the 15% extra shield applies to your Sterax, and when you activate your Gargoyle when you're about to die. So like, it's like Revitalize makes it worth to go Gargoyles third. And if they have some AP champions, you can go Spirit Village fourth and have like a very buffed up amounts of shields, right? So Revitalize is very strong. And it's also very good if you have a healer on your team, like Yuumi, or like a Janna, or like a Soraka. It's very good if you have Revitalize with those champions on your team, right? But like, you only need this if you're up against like harder teams, right? Not if you're up against like easier teams. So those are like the options for resolve. And now for these like, stats. For the first one, you always want attack speed, right? Attack speed is so important on Darius, right? So like, if you go AD here, you're basically screwed because like, you're never going to be able to combo anyone. You're never going to be able to slowly fight with anyone. It's insanity, right? For these next two, you take it based on how you're feeling, right? If we're going for this kind of build, right, where we're going to fight and take over the lane, then something like this would be more appropriate, right? Because we need that armor to like sustain their damage, but we also need attack speed and AD to help us with CS, to help us with early damage, etc., right? So this setup is very nice if you're going to fight someone, right? Like this, for example, right? If you're up against like a harder lane, like let's say you're up against Cassiopeia, right? Then you might want to go double MR, right? Like these two are basically like the ones you're going to be changing every time. This stays attack speed no matter what. You'd set these to resistances or like AD and a resistance most of the time. If they have something where it's like, you don't know who's top or who's mid, take one resistance for your best guess, and for the bottom one, put it on AD so that you have at least something in case, like, like just in case, right? Just in case you guessed wrong, basically. If you're up against like a free tank lane, you're free to go attack speed, AD, and HP, right? Like HP is the one that's like the best out of all these three, but it's like the weakest early on, right? These are better early, but this is better once it stacks up to 90. So like, get this if you're up against a free lane, but if you're up against a lane where you have to fight, then you can go for these sorts of resistances. So yeah, that is 15 minutes. Okay. Thank you very much for watching the video. This is the end of the video, and this is all the rune information you need to know when it comes to the next season, right? Now, there is one more page that we forgot, which is like Phase Rush. Let me just get into this, like the Phase Rush page. But this page, like, you know, it's basically optional, and you're gonna be good at running Conqueror 99% of the time, right? Just forget about Phase Rush, right? As Darius, we actually need Conqueror to survive some of these games, right? So just go for the Conqueror Resolve or Conqueror Sorcery page every game, and pretty much forget about like Phase Rush, because like it's basically only better against like maybe 3 lanes in the game, like, and even in those cases, it's only better by like 10% or so, right? Just get used to this page and get used to switching your runes between like before games, and you should be good to go for the most part, right? So yeah, that's it for this video. Thank you guys very much for watching, and I will be releasing more and more content that's updated for season 11. So yeah, thank you very much, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out.